Hey, welcome to the Happy Rant podcast. I am Ted Cluck, joined as always in studio by my good friends, my partners in radio, Barnabas Piper and Ronald J. Martin. Boys, we're going to talk about glumness today. I'm excited about it. Actually, ironically, don't feel super glum, even though like business is canceled and there's no more business and no more sponsorships. So that's okay. We can wax nostalgic about back when we used to do business deals in this company.
We still have Redbud City coffee roasters. We can't throw them under the bus, but
tell us about it. Tell us about the
recent business deals. Yes, so redbudcoffee.com is the website. We cannot ignore them. They have stayed faithful while everybody else has abandoned us and thrown us overboard. So if you go to redbudcoffee.com, it's a family-owned craft coffee roaster out of rural Illinois, and they do fantastic stuff. I just finished my last bag. Yeah, good folks. I just finished my last bag of coffee by them, so I need to reorder. But if you use the code Happy Rant at checkout, you get 10% off of your entire order. They kind of rotate through their roasts, so they have different ones at different times, so you can try different ones out. I've tried, I don't know, probably half a dozen different ones, and it's hard to pick a favorite, although I think the Brazilian might be my favorite. So go to redbudcoffee.com, use the code Happy Rant at checkout, get 10% off. It's great coffee. It's reasonably priced compared to, kind of on the craft coffee scale, so you're not going to be shocked by it. And great value, great coffee. Check it out.
Dude, solid read, Pipe. Really solid read. Boys, another thing I'm excited about, the baby boy had a birthday, Piper, 50th. Big deal, man. That's a huge milestone, man, to me.
How many of our listeners do you think realized Ronnie was approaching 50?
Wow, what a good question.
Because Ronnie gives off vibes of youthfulness and vigor.
Yeah, he used to, dude. I mean, he used to give off more youthful vibes, I think. But I feel like, and this is
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, baby. This is a compliment. I'm working my way to it. But
I can't imagine how this is going to end that way. But fascinate me.
Baby, listen to me, okay? You got to stay with me, all right? Because I'm going to bring it around. I feel like when you and I first met, baby, so we're going back like a decade plus. You were doing kind of color in the hair, like not having the beard. It was pre-beards, obviously, but you were kind of fighting the aging thing. But I feel like as of the last couple of years, you've really accepted it. Like you've leaned into it, and you've embraced the gray. You're
and
not
the wisdom, full on. Like the Yoda thing improves with age. It is not a young man's game.
Dude. Yoda's not a young. Yoda is an old man's game. Like in the Yoda game, you're still young, right? You're still a young guy in the Yoda game. So that's got a ton of upside. I don't know. I just feel like the last couple of years you've embraced it. But I wanted to wish you a happy birthday, and you got my greeting, dude. And the greeting, I know, man, powerful, just powerful. We're all men of letters, so I texted Ronald and I just wished him a happy birthday, and I told him I wished him that his dad Jared would get him a pony or a bike, dude. Because what do we all want on our birthday from Jared? A pony, a bike, or a book deal. So here's hoping, baby, that one of those things came through. But I wanted to ask you about aging, because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Piper is the young pup, the young pup on the program. Maybe he's thinking about it, but I know that my perspective, my outlook on things has changed quite a bit just as I've kind of gotten into my 40s here. So, baby, any big insights at 50? How are you feeling?
Yeah, no, man, I appreciate that. So I've been. Man, the age thing. Okay, I'm going to be a little serious right now. I'm not going to preach a sermon like last week, but age has always been a big deal to me. Part of it was because I spent, over half my life kind of in the music industry, where it's like everybody has fooled themselves into thinking they're younger than they are based on what they're doing, what they're allowed to do for a living, how they're supposed to look while they're doing this very sort of like youth-oriented thing for a living. Yep. And so it's kind of a weird thing to spend so long of your life in. And then coming out of it, it's honestly been something that has been a massive struggle for me, just the aging process in general. And just kind of coming to this place where it's like, I still feel, you always put yourself at a particular age.
Sure.
And so this inability to embrace that you're not 31 anymore or whatever it is, whatever that age is, right? And it's like I think for a lot of people, it's not a big deal at all. You know, if you were to talk to my wife or other friends I have, they're like, I don't know what the big deal is, Ronnie. And for me, it's just been a struggle. I think, again, because I was in something that was so youth oriented.
Do you mean it's not a big deal to them that you are getting older, or just like that aging happens to all of us?
Yeah, just more like personally to them, they're just like, I've never cared about getting older. In fact, I like it. I enjoy my birthdays. And like for me, it's always been something I've dread. Like since the age of 13, like I've just dreaded it because like I haven't accomplished yet what I want to accomplish. And now I'm 13 and I'm a teenager and I can't go back to my younger years. I mean, I literally had those thoughts on the eve of my 13th birthday, you know? And
that's crazy at 13.
So you can only imagine how bad it was at 49. But here's what's amazing is that I've prayed so much about this. I've actually experienced growth in this to where 50 there was kind of a joy with it, because it was almost like there's this permission now in the sense that, hey, you have to embrace this. You can't fake it. You can fake a lot at 37, right? You can still, you know, at 37, I looked younger than when I was 27 at 37, right? I was skinnier, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? But like
as a 37-year-old, I don't know if you're insulting me or just stating my existence, but it seems fairly accurate. Yeah,
no, and I that would not be insulting you at all. That's a compliment. But at 50, you're not faking anything anymore, and it is
no doubt, dude.
The age, the numbers in and of themselves are enough to just be like, dude, it doesn't matter what you think or think what other people are thinking. There's a 5 and there's an O after your name now, and it's just going to keep getting worse, right? And so I don't know how God worked in me to where I was able to embrace it with some level of joy and acceptance, but I actually feel pretty good about it, and it's a new experience for me. It's like I've never felt this way before. So I kind of like this. I kind of like this sort of like, hey, it's okay for you to be like an elder statesman. It's okay for like people to look at you and say, oh, there might be 1 or 2% wisdom there. Let's hear what he has to say. I don't mind that. You know,
baby, do you have any like old man like icons, like mentors, either aesthetically? Let's not do theology because that's boring. But like,
amen.
Right. I mean, old man, like iconic old men that you sort of aspire to be.
Yeah, let me think about that. I'll come back to
you
on the show about that. I got to think about that.
Yeah, well, dude, a lot of what you were saying was resonating with me, because I think in sports it's the same way. In sports we have this saying called Father Time is undefeated. You know, i.e. like time never loses. You know, it's gonna get you. You know, it's gonna get you one way or the other. And as an athlete, you're always trying to kind of stave it off in the same way that probably music people are. And but you see it, like you see the erosion of time and all of that kind of impeding. And I think, for me, it's been more of a mindset shift of, we've talked about this on the program before, so I don't want to go too hard into it. But I think with youth comes a certain amount of delusion that's fun and healthy. So the kind of dreams that you're dreaming at 27 are largely delusional, but you believe in them because you're 27. Whereas like now I'm 44, you're 50. Like we probably aren't buying the delusional dreams anymore. The die is pretty much cast. You know who you are, what your ceiling is, which is both. I think it's part of the contentment that you talked about, right? Part of Ronnie Martin at 50 or me at 44 is knowing pretty clearly what I'm not going to do, and kind of what I'm capable of doing, which is both depressing and freeing, if that makes sense. Because at 27, it was probably fun for you to dream about, I don't know, whatever the apex mountain of your industry would have been back then for you. Like you were probably dreaming those dreams, and I was doing the same thing with writing and sports, and I'm just not doing that anymore. And in fact, when I encounter people who are in their 40s and are dreaming those big dreams still, it strikes me as a little bit ridiculous and sad. Does it strike you as ridiculous and sad? Like when you meet a middle-aged big dreamer, I just kind of roll my eyes and I'm like, bro, grow up at some level. I don't know. Pipe, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I have a little different personal perspective, I don't think you're wrong. My experience differed because I became a dad at 22. And so in some sense, like,
your life was over early.
Yeah, there's an element where you're like, well, certain things are just not on the table anymore. Certain financial things, certain, travel the world, vacation things, spend 8 years doing whatever you want before you have kids when you're ready, quote unquote, ready. Yeah. Note to all you young folks out there, you'll never be ready, and you're not ready, after you have 2 kids either. And so, yeah, there's an element of like, there was just sort of a deflation of those big dreams. And I don't know that I was ever prone to that anyway. Like, I think some people are just more, I want to reach the apex, and other people have maybe a different mindset. But I definitely resonate with what you said, Ted, about meeting people like my age. So 37, 37 to 45. And yeah, if they're still kind of like the, get the world by the tail and wrap it around and put it in my pocket type of people, I'm like, you sound as crazy as Tommy Boy did when he said that.
Yeah, shout out Matt Foley, motivational speaker.
Exactly. Like there's a ridiculousness to it, which is not to say that I don't think is cynical. There's just sort of a realism of like, yeah, this is what life offers. Like there's a ceiling on what each of us can accomplish in life. And that's not depressing once you realize it. You're like, oh, these are the boundaries on my capabilities in life. And if I stay within the boundaries, I can live with a lot of enjoyment. If I keep trying to break the boundaries, I'm just going to get a headache.
Dude, what a good word, man. And what an eloquent way to say it. That's actually really helpful. I'm going to ask another question vis-a-vis aging. And the question I'm about to ask, it's going to sound really glum. So preemptively, I'm okay. But I just I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. And I had this conversation. It was almost an argument with a lady in my small group last night. And, it was about taking trips. And I know, like, Ronnie Tarmac, all that stuff, but on a more serious level, I was just kind of like explaining to her again, like, I'm 44. I've gone almost everywhere that I want to go in the world, like literally and figuratively. Like, I don't know. I'm not getting super stoked about trips anymore. Like, we could take a trip or not take a trip this summer. I really don't care. You know what I mean? But she was sort of like, oh, trips aren't bad. Don't vilify. I'm not vilifying trips. Okay. Take your trip, enjoy your trip. Judas Priest.
Your Paul trip.
I'm right. I'm just saying, I don't know, stuff that used to move the needle.
I'm just glad to know we can moralize things like travel. I should have known that was possible, but
yeah, what a blast, dude! Moralizing travel.
I forgot that. Yeah, and like I forgot that we were capable of doing that. So it's good to be reminded that we can turn everything into a sin if we so choose, or a virtue.
That's fun, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
We haven't had a blast fighting about everything else the last couple of weeks. Let's vilify trips. But do you get what I'm getting at? Like, do you guys still get excited about stuff? Is the question. And if so, like, what kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, it feels like, man, with any sense of maturity, like those things have to change, or you have to find sort of a richer and deeper version of what those things used to be on a more nominal level, right? So it's not just about going like, so I like to travel, right? But like, but it has to be a certain kind of traveling now. Whereas maybe in my 20s, it was like, I don't care. I just want to go somewhere. It doesn't matter where it is, because I just, I want the experience and, whatever else my motivations were for. And now it's going to be a little more, I'm going to slow my roll on that. I'm going to think through it. I'm going to be a little more planny. I have a better idea of what I like and don't like. So I'm not going to walk into things that from the past were things that were not incredibly enjoyable or fit who I was personality wise. And so I just think you just get better at sort of forming things around the person that you know better than you did 20 years ago. And I just think that's kind of what sets the stage for me with things. And then there are some things that I'm like, I literally never want to do that again, because I spent 10 years doing that. And I don't like it. I don't want to do it, Well, and I think it's good to know that too. Right. But
we're kind of at the tipping point age wise. And I mean, Pipe's dad wrote like a huge thing about this. We're kind of at the point where people either lean really hard into just like pleasuring themselves for the next 35 years until they die, which is totally culturally acceptable. Like, even culturally acceptable / celebrated in the church. And not that we need to go a 180 and like completely lean into being miserable, but I just, yeah, I guess I'm grappling with this whole idea of, okay, I'm in middle age. I see half of my friends just getting super stoked about their next trip, and it's all they talk about, and whatever, that seems boring and like kind of a waste. But yeah, I'm not ready to like, I don't know, sell my house and live under a bridge like Shane Claiborne. So what's the, you know, I want to do it right. I want to hit the sweet spot, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is.
I think if you go to either end of the extremes, you end up disappointed. Like if you think life is going to be happier by selling everything and seeking sort of a monastic ascetic existence, like you just end up empty and without anything comfortable. And if you go the other way, you just end up spending all your money on stuff that doesn't, you know, like you had a great day today, but tomorrow you have to wake up and face yourself. So, and that's not awesome either. So you're asking like, what do we get excited about? Do we get excited about trips or whatever? The answer for me is yes, but differently than I used to. Mm-hmm. You know, I used to kind of assume that anything was going to be the pinnacle experience, you know, going to go on this spring break trip, going to go on this vacation. And now it's much more like, man, it's going to be fun. Yeah. Or we'll make it fun. You know, kind of that sense of like, you can find the things to appreciate in a road trip or in a vacation or in a family reunion. That one can be tricky. You know, whatever it is. And so it's more of a appreciating things for what they are instead of expecting them to be something they can't be. And that's what I see people
expectations
kind of perpetually doing. And you know, full self-promotion here. I just finished reading the audiobook yesterday for my next book coming out in the fall. And it's about this,
dude,
like expectations. And well, you brought the subject up, man. You put it on a tee for me. So it was, like this is, it's all of this, you know, sort of like what do we expect out of life? And then what is realistic? And even as I was reading the audiobook, I was feeling convicted by stuff that I wrote because I'm like, oh, yep, still struggle with that. Still bank on the wrong things to give excitement or happiness or whatever. But also it's too easy to shift into cynicism and just be like, well, don't expect anything out of anything.
Yeah, I know, man. I know.
T, let me go someplace with you. It's going to sound like I'm trying to do a counseling sesh with you, and I swear I'm not.
No, do it, baby. I'll swipe my insurance card on the way out.
Absolutely. I could use a little cash. But this is what I want to ask you, man, because I feel like with you, and I can ask this because I've known you for a decade now.
Sure.
It feels like to me there is some sense of like when you ask the question, like, man, are there things that you're just not excited about anymore that you feel like an obligation to be excited about? I get this sense from you that when there's things that you feel the pressure to be excited about that you're not excited about. And so when someone says, well, that's crazy, how can you not want to travel, Ted? It immediately like puts a particular kind of expectations on your shoulders that then you're just sort of like pushing against rather than saying, well, man, there's, you know, whether you want to travel or not travel is not really the question, right? I mean, that really doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's why do you feel the pressure from somebody when they kind of lay that expectation on you rather than just saying, yeah, I'm just not a travel guy. I like being home.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I just think more broadly, there's a big like fake enthusiasm, like expectation in our culture, kind of in general. You know what I mean? Yeah. And one aspect of this, and maybe this is a pivot into another topic that we talked about. Teaching is a great example, right? So I'm going into year 6 at my university. Still love it here. Still very thankful for the job, but you know, people will ask questions like, you excited about the new semester? And it's like, well, no, like not really, you know, I mean, in the general like definition of excitement, no. Am I grateful for the job? Of course. Do I still like teaching young writers? I do. But yeah, that sense of being like, wow, this is new and I'm wide-eyed and I'm super stoked and I don't know all the gossip around campus and I'm not jaded about that. You know, like it doesn't feel the same in year 6 as it does in year 1. And the answer isn't just get a new job every year, you know, and I think there are people who live their lives like that. As soon as something stops being exciting, I'm going to move on to the next thing. So I think across the board, whether it's travel or work or whatever, there's kind of this in guys that like the fields that we're in kind of engender this, right? Because in any given friend group, and this is going to sound like a strange flex, but it isn't. But like in any given friend group, we're probably doing the most interesting things vocationally in that we got books coming out and we're, trying to make a movie or trying to make a record or whatever. We have interesting things going. So I think for a lot of people, like our stuff seems more exciting, but I think when you hit a certain age, it's really not. And, that doesn't mean don't do it. But I think my reasons for writing at age 44 are a lot different than my reasons for writing were at age 24 or 27 or 31 or whatever. And it's just a process to kind of look at that and go, okay, why am I doing this? And are my reasons for doing it okay? Can I live with it?
Why do you think? Let me ask one more thing real quick.
Yeah.
Because I find that you said something that kind of triggered something that I feel like is like alive in me.
Sure.
Why do you have, and when I'm saying to you, so it sounds like I'm nailing you with this, but I'm kind of talking to both of us.
Yeah.
Why do you have a problem with when somebody asks you, are you excited for the new semester? And they're probably being more rhetorical than anything.
Sure.
They're not asking you to be literal. Like, gee, did you just jump out of bed this morning and, jump up and down and say, Devil K, I can't wait to get, they're obviously not meaning that. Right. But for some reason, you can't just give them a simple, it's going to be a great year.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe this is like the deficiency or the disconnect inside of me. And I want to hear you on this too, because we're both fours.
I kind of struggle with the same thing, is what I'm saying. Like when somebody asks me something, like that, I struggle.
And I bet Pipe doesn't struggle with this. I want to hear Pipe on this. I feel like in any given social situation, I have to give the people exactly what they came for. You know what I mean? So if what they came for is they want to see Big T be excited about the semester, I feel like I got to deliver that for them. And if I don't, they're going to be disappointed. And then if they're disappointed, maybe they won't like me. And that's a problem, right? Because I want to be liked probably more than any other single thing. Full disclosure. So yeah, there's just a sense of and baby, this happens 90% subconsciously, right? Just moving about life, kind of giving people what they want. So yeah, I do. I think I would struggle with saying to somebody, I'm not super stoked about next year. And I could go into the myriad of reasons why that's true, but yeah, I don't want to bum everybody out. You know what I mean?
So you would struggle. So hold on. So that's different than what you said. You would struggle saying that, no, I'm not excited. You would struggle with saying, okay.
Yeah.
But that's still what you say though. You don't like give them sort of you don't really give them the pleasure of just saying, yeah, absolutely, man. My class.
No, I fake it. I fake it with most people. Totally.
Okay.
Like in day to day, if somebody's like, "Hey, you stoked about the new semester?" Oh yeah.
Okay. So you do that
just because I feel like it's easier than saying,
for sure. Because then you got to explain yourself when you say no.
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
It's a little bit. We were talking about like moralizing travel. People moralize excitement too. So if Ted was like, "Nah, not really," they would stop and be like, "Oh, bro, what's going on? Like, what's the matter? What's the crisis?" And you'd be like, "Nothing. I've just done this for a decade." Like it's just things are not, excitement is not the word I would use. It doesn't.
Right.
All the other
Grateful,
positive ones might be on the table.
Like, happy to talk with students, grateful to have the job. Obviously, all those are yeses. But yeah, excitement is a different thing. When
it's you were talking earlier about how we we have in our circles maybe among the more interesting vocations or jobs. Well, living in Nashville, I would put myself on the lower end of the scale of interesting from the outside, because I went to a guy's birthday the other night, and he's a session musician. So that means he's a professional musician who does primarily recording, so not a touring guy. But he's played with dozens of musicians who everybody would have heard of, especially if you like country music, but country, rock, whatever. He's brilliant. Yeah. You know how he talks about his job? The same way that Ted talks about teaching. Like it's just...
It's what he does.
Yeah, he doesn't get excited to go to the studio. He enjoys it. He appreciates it. He's grateful for it. and he's considering what does his future look like. He's like, how long do I want to do this thing? Like, it's kind of a young man's game too. Like what you were talking about, Ronnie. Like there's a weird age twist to it, even though he's not a touring musician. And so there, you look at it and you're like, yeah, I'm not the most interesting person in that circle vocationally. Yeah. He probably is. But even he is at the place where he's like, I'm not excited. It's just he enjoys it. He's good at it. He's got a great attitude, whatever. But he's not like geeked up about going to play with, pick your favorite country music star the way that the way he probably was 10 years ago.
Yeah, everything loses its luster. I mean, I think if we're going to break it down, I think to that for sure. There's like a point where we've done something long enough to where it's like we derive different kinds of pleasures from it than we did maybe in the beginning when it was new, because there's something about the newness of something that creates an excitement. Whereas if once we've been down that road long enough, excitement's the wrong word. But I think it's curious for us to sort of just discuss like what, again, relating it back to our age, how does that continue in our lives without us becoming jaded and cynical and saying, hey, you know what? I'm not going to get excited about this. Way, like if you buy a new bicycle, right? I'm not going to get excited about a new bike the way I did when I got one for my birthday at 11 years old. I'm happy to get it. It's, I want to ride it. I'm looking forward to it, but there's not going to be that level of like just pure unadulterated joy, probably.
Maybe we'd be excited about those Vespas though.
Right. We would be excited about those. Let's be honest.
Let's be honest with ourselves and our listeners. No, I want to lean in on that though, because that's really good. And another thing about aging that I've been thinking about a lot is, how when we were growing up, I don't know if you guys were like this. I assumed that everybody who was old was wise. I assumed wisdom, and I assumed that they were on this like wisdom trajectory that had them getting wiser as they got older. Huh. And now that I'm older, and now that I'm around older people, I'm like, A, a lot of them aren't wise at all. B, a lot of them don't care about becoming more Christ-like or wisdom or whatever, or refinement. And C, I just think I see a lot of older people, even older Christians, just kind of giving up. Right? They kind of stop caring. They stop working on stuff.
Absolutely.
And I feel convicted about that. Like, I don't want that to happen to us. And it's something that Double K and I talk about a lot. Do you guys see that, or am I crazy? Like, is that a thing?
Ronnie probably has to be careful so he doesn't insult any of the old people at his church.
Well, yeah, it's true.
You mean insult myself? Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Are you the oldest person at your church?
No, we have an older.
Okay, I mean, just I don't know. Some hipstery churches trend very young, so just ask.
Our trends young, and we actually don't have a lot of 40s and my age. We actually that's the big gap in our.
You're either like quite a bit older or quite a bit younger.
You're either like 25 to like Pipe's age with kids, or you're 62 and older kind of a thing. Yeah, we don't have a lot of that middle age, but. What was your question again, Big T? I forgot.
I don't know. Do like old people give up? Like, do they give up on like sanctification?
I totally think that one of the things we always forget that like older people need shepherding, right? Because we just think, they don't want to hear it. Old dog, new trick. You're going to insult them because you're a younger guy and they've already lived so much life. And it's like just assuming that they've somehow arrived, at this place, right? And some of them have arrived at a place of like deeper maturity for sure. But I think that's actually, Big T, that's one of the most disappointing things to me is when you see, and again, I think if you look at this is going a little bit deeper, but I think some of the thinness of our evangelicalism over the last 40 years has kind of produced that in some of our older, 65 plus generation, to where it's like, oh man, it just doesn't matter. All this stuff I worked so hard at, all these Bible studies, I mean, all these books I've read, and here I am, and the world's falling apart, and the church is divided, and who cares? And it's like they kind of have that cynicism, and you just look at them and you say, no, hold on, man, you have so much to offer other people, younger people who are half your age that are already feeling this way, so don't give up, And I'm always fascinated by that, because there is at some point it feels like their learning stopped, like they stopped learning.
How much
and
of
they
that,
stopped pursuing maturity.
How much of that is because we've sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Stratified, especially in the church by generation. So like old people are just like put in like separated by layers,
like ranked.
Yeah.
Like
and
affinity.
So there's like the old people are in a layer all their own.
Yeah.
With other old people. Right. And I'm using that term sort of flippantly, but just the idea that people my age are rarely sitting around having discussions about life and parenting and following Jesus and finances and culture with somebody who's 74, you know?
Yeah.
That's like, I don't have a lot of old friends. And I feel like that's probably to my detriment, but I wonder how much it's to their detriment. You know, just sort of they sort of become petrified in their old age because there's less vibrant perspective, questions, and then somebody drawing on their experience of life. Like just, hey, tell me what it was like when you were my age. That breathes a lot of life. Everybody likes to be asked their perspective on things or their experiences.
For sure.
So one of the most encouraging things that happened for me, also one of the weirdest, you mentioned older people needing shepherding, Ronnie. Probably 3 months into working at Emmanuel, I get an email from an older couple at the church who they've been in the same small group for several years. It's mostly couples between the ages of like 60 and 75. And they're like, hey, we want to meet with you and talk about how to make a leadership transition in our group because somebody moved away. And they sat down and started asking me questions that groups of 20-year-olds ask me. And I was looking at him and I'm like, I am half the age of most of the people at this table right now. And they're asking me the best ways to do these different things in their group and leadership and communication and stuff like that. And it was encouraging because I'm watching 70-plus-year-olds be all the way invested. They haven't given up. And it was really weird because it dawned on me that I can't just focus on the people who I think I have wisdom over. I have to focus on like the whole, all the age strata, if you will, to do this. And it is really encouraging when you find older people who are like, they're running to the finish line. They don't know, you know, whatever that looks like in their context.
Absolutely, dude. That is super encouraging. And those are the kind of, it's so weird to be talking about it because you mentioned before Big R, and there is this tipping point where like, I think for decades, KK and I just always felt young. Like even when we were getting older, we felt young and we thought of ourselves as young and we were doing like young people stuff. And now it's like, I wonder what happened or what changed. It wasn't like an overnight thing, but it's been gradual where you start to think about these issues a little bit more.
I have a question for you guys because this has been a fairly recent realization for me, like the last couple of years, and I'm curious when it happened for you. Yeah. When did you start to look at adults who are younger than you and sort of feel like you were the older and wiser one? So So I look at some, the 25-year-old guys at our church and I'm like, oh, you're such dumb kids sometimes, not all of them, but they make some dumb kid decisions or they ask questions that I'm like, seriously, this is not hard. And I don't feel old, but I definitely feel older and wiser or older compared to them. When did you guys tip from like, I'm the young guy to, oh, I'm not the young guy anymore, at least not for a significant portion of the people I interact with?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's a good question. Yeah. I think for me, as far as I can, just on the spot here, I think I remember really feeling that way when I turned 40, because there was this sense where it's like, I'm looking at I'm working in the studio with a 20-year-old, for example, and I'm like, oh, old enough to be your dad, but he seems like a full grown adult, you know what I mean? So you're looking at this person, you're like, they're not like it's not like they're 12. They're 20, 21, they're an adult, and yet you got to get your mind wrapped around this thing that you're old enough to be this person's dad. And as you're hearing things come out of their mouth, you're like, oh, okay. So this is somebody who is, this is somebody who has not had the benefit of 20 more years of life. And it's kind of a surreal moment because, again, for me, I'm relating it again back to this music stuff, which is we're here and we're doing the same thing. We're recording something, we're making creative choices. So when it comes to this, it's like a level playing field in as much as we're working together on something. But then when you pull back a little bit and you're looking at, their life from a life perspective, for me, I think at about 40, it was like, oh, wow. Okay. So this is like, dude, you got to get your head wrapped around this because, again, young enough to be your son or your daughter or whatever, and just literally in a different world with how they process the world,
Yeah, I think that's good, man. And it was similar for me where as a professor, realizing like my students' dads want to hang out. Like when their dads come to town to visit them, like they want to hang out with
that's
me.
Funny.
Like, it's not like the students want to hang out so much anymore. It's their dads, like, hey, let's get together and talk about 90s NFL and the Buffalo Bills and Jim Kelly. And,
and you're like, what has my world come to?
Well, yeah, like, it's just like, I've gotten old, and it's cool. It's fine. Some of these dads are awesome. They know who they are. They listen. Some of them listen to the show, so shout out to those guys. But
I think for me it was when the first time I heard one of my kids say, referred to the 90s the way that I refer to the 70s as like a bygone era,
magical time
that they know existed, but it's not a real thing in their minds.
Yeah,
I introduced them to grunge or hip hop or whatever the way that like my brothers introduced me to classic rock or something like that. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm old. I mean, at least I'm on the old trajectory. I don't feel all the way old, but there's a massive gap here between, like, in my mind, I still feel like I could probably relate to a 14-year-old in terms of like, I remember 14 pretty well. And then I'd watch my 14-year-old daughter and I'm like, nope, different dimensions. Not just an age difference. Like, it's a different reality.
It happens, dude. It happens to all of us, which is fascinating. It was something that like my dad used to talk about, and I really never believed him. Because when I was young and arrogant and full of bravado, I thought I would be the one person who would like not age and always be able to relate. But Pops was right, as he often was about so many things.
But I also think too, man, we are struggling. This is what I've found, and again, maybe the older generation would laugh, and I'm guessing they would at this. But I feel like when I look at my dad and my dad's dad and his dad, I see, we live in a bit of an eternal youth culture now that I don't think was in existence then. Now they might say, dude, I know what you're about to say. And it's not true, but it's like, well, hold on, Dad, because I remember at 35, you wore the same clothes as your 65-year-old dad, my grandpa, right? There was like this, like, in terms of like, and I know that, man, this is a way deep dive, right? But it's like,
no, I get what you're saying though.
But it's like this thing where I think we've been fooled into more of a feeling that we're younger than we are. Because again, like we're just more engaged with things. There's more things to be engaged with than like our parents had at their disposal. And so, I mean, even as far as the way we dress, the way we look, what we're listening to, what we're, all of those things combined into one big basket full of
dude, and there's even
whatever.
There's even like pharmaceuticals that make this happen, right? If I meet another old like weirdo who's like 70 from the neck up but jacked from the neck down, like right. Like these guys are growing on trees now. They're all these workout fitness weirdos that are 75 and jacked. It's crazy, dude.
So I just think it's been harder for us to age. Like for my dad, I'm thinking so when I turned 50, I remember my dad, when I was 18, my dad was 50. And I remember 18 like it was yesterday. I can tell you everything about that year of my life, right? And it was like, but looking at so what I tell everybody about 50 is this just was the age my dad was my whole life, right?
Sure.
But when I look at my dad at 50 in a photo album, because that's the only way I have to chronicle him, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, dude, that's an old guy. Like, I'm not that old. Like, dude, he looks older. He looks as old as my grandpa who died 40 years ago was like at that time.
Did your dad have a mustache?
For sure.
Okay, I think mustaches make people the same age for as long as they have the mustache. Mm-hmm. I think a mustache, like, it immediately bumps you up to approximately 35 to 45. And then you basically that's your floor, and then you basically just stay around 45-ish, maybe 50 for the duration of the mustache.
But what about all the 37-year-old hipsters that like do the big mustache now?
That's a good question, baby. I was just about to ask that.
Okay, there is another version of mustache, and it's like the high school kid who hasn't learned how to shave. They tilt more that direction. You're like, oh, nobody told you to fix that?
Right.
Yeah, with hipsters, there's the ironic mustache, and that's its own category. Like, if the mustache is ironic, then it's not a real mustache, and it doesn't age you.
Yeah, I'm talking about like the
like a real legitimate
kind of bushy handlebar type of mustache. That's like it was like the man's mustache from whatever 1970 through 1995 or whatever.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it.
Similar to what Ron just said, I look back on my dad. So my dad became the pastor at Bethlehem Baptist in 1980, and he looked young, but he dressed exactly the same way he dresses now. It might even be the same jacket and the same Dockers. I'm not sure.
Because he doesn't wear that jacket that Drisky gave him, right?
It was no leather jackets. Actually, it was MacArthur who gave him the leather jacket. But so I mean, he in my mind. So my dad was, I think, 38 when I was born, and he's just been the same guy. And then it was a couple years ago I realized like he's not quite as like vigorous as he was. We were doing some hiking, and he'd slowed down a little bit. But for like 30 years, he was at the front of the pack on like, if we're gonna go play backyard football, we're gonna go hiking, we're gonna whatever. And he dressed like an old guy and lived with energy, and like that. He was just the same dude for forever. And so this idea that like I'm still a young man. And sort of this, I might even aspire to look like it. I don't think he ever wrestled with that.
Yeah, and that's one of the big differences, I think. And
that's a beauty, though, man. That's a beautiful thing, I think. Don't you, Big R? Like the fact that we grew up with like consistent dads.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Our poor kids, dude.
Dads that were not aiming for an image. They actually grew older with some sense of like
dignity.
Grace.
Yeah, dude, we knew who they were. They were consistent.
They weren't fighting against their age. There was no fight against the aging process.
Dude, our poor kids, they're growing up with us, man, and we're pathetic, and we're all like, I'm trying to find myself, and I want to talk about my feelings and my Enneagram. Like, dude, our kids must be sick to death of us, dude.
Do you think our kids are going to swing the other way and just be like the, backbones of steel, like kind of emotionally stunted? Like, we're not talking about feelings. Buck up, kid. Yeah. Like they sort of go back to Greatest Generation because we're so soft.
Only if they're not Enneagram Force,
Our generation is kind of garbage. I'm not going to lie. I don't know.
To be fair, we are not the same generation. You are Gen X. I am not.
Yeah.
So,
well, dude, mine's definitely garbage. Maybe yours is a little bit less garbage.
Pipe, you're young Gen X. Do we got to get into this again, man? Every time. Man.
I'm what they call an Xennial. So.
Oh my gosh, I'm so angry right now.
Oh wait, you're Gen X. You're always angry about something.
Yeah, because the power never got handed to us, Pipe. You should understand. That's your dad's fault, by the way.
Power never got handed to us either. We just took it.
Yeah, well, no, it's still not handed to you, by the way.
Yeah, that's true.
If it's not ours, it's not yours yet either.
To be fair, there are no politicians from either of our generation in Washington right now. Well, there's like two. So I don't think either of us have power in this country. It's all
correct.
Dude, we're post-power anyway. Yeah. Power's
post-power. I love that, man.
Fight the power.
That's the name of this app. Post-power.
Baby, I'm not going to rest until there's no more businesses open anywhere, until no one has power.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, nobody gets to make money. No businesses.
Nobody gets to make money. No businesses.
I want handouts from people who don't have money. Yeah.
Dude, no flesh, dude. I want all of us in drab olive garments. I'm not going to rest until that happens.
But I'm not going to make them. Somebody else better make them for me.
Well, speaking of garments, I want to end with one thing, man. So this is a little bit of breaking news. Ronald, as we've been on the radio here, you tweeted out an image, or didn't tweet out you texted an image.
I just threw it out to you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And the company is called Tweedmaker, and Tweedmaker makes, quote, stellar tweed suits for gentlemen. And there's an image of three old guys.
Is the word bespoke in there anywhere? Because that's
for sure.
I'm
100.
I'm 100% in if the word bespoke is in there.
And again, these dudes aren't like super old though, right? I thought was my whole
Well,
that
dude,
was the whole shocking thing.
They're falling into that 60 to 70 range to me.
You think they're that old? All right.
Maybe 55 to 70.
Well, the dude on the right, I would say, might be more my age. On
Dude on the right's about
blue.
50. Dude
Yeah,
on the
that's what I
far
was
left,
thinking. Yeah.
Far left could be pushing 70.
Yeah, the
man.
James Bond guy on the far left, and then you got sort of the legitimately older man in the middle. Is what I was thinking.
Carrying just a beauty of a bag, man. It looks like a saddleback leather bag.
Absolutely.
I kind of like that. Speaking of drab olive, his drab olive green bowler hat is just
sick.
Strong.
It's dope. Yeah.
2 out of these 3 gentlemen are carrying canes, like not orthopedic ones, not like the ones you get.
Yeah, that's a little too far for me. I'm going to be honest.
You feel like the cane is too far as an accessory?
Oh, it's so pretentious to me, man.
It's very pretentious.
You use a cane when you actually need to use a cane, not a minute before.
Listen to me. Even though
the rules of cane.
Yeah, dude, we got to do a whole episode on canes. Okay.
I just pulled up their website. They're just an abundance of amazing pictures because it's all like customers with pictures of themselves in their suits.
Yeah.
There's some serious variety here of the well,
Baby.
Except for the fact that they're all white dudes. But
I would love to go back to those days of wearing suits, except I don't want to wear a suit. That's my problem. I want to go back to it without having to do it.
I want to get a deal with this company so that we can get these suits and then not wear them.
You mean when we do our next live show? I
just want to have them in the closet, dude. I want to have a Tweedmaker suit in the closet that I can choose not to.
There's going to be something you're going to need to wear it to. You know?
Yeah, dude, there would be. Pipe's wedding. I could wear it to Pipe's wedding.
Absolutely. Absolute.
Could we get Tweedmaker like on board and get some suits in our hands before the wedding?
That does not seem out of the realm.
It doesn't, baby. I think we need to dream
bespoke,
big.
It takes a while to craft and create this thing for you and with fitting. So I mean, you got to turn around. We're talking like a month and a half at this point. So,
dude, can I do a hot take on Bespoke?
Yeah, I kept saying it because I wanted somebody to react.
If we tell you no, is that going to stop you?
I don't like Bespoke anymore. Like, I grew up in the 80s, dude. I grew up in the decade of like everything being mass produced and that being the most awesome thing. Yeah. It's like, bro, yeah, I got my suit from Sears. Check it out, dude. There's like 12 billion of these in circulation. Isn't it sweet? You know, like that's the decade I grew up in, which I think is why I like IKEA. Like I go to IKEA and it's just this monument to like mass produced crap. And I find it fascinating. Like, wow, they made 1 million of these, which is why they can sell them for like $2, you know?
It's way easier to make choices in the mass produced world too. Yeah. You know, so, plug your ears, Southern Baptists. But I got a text from my fiance this morning that said, "Hey, have you thought about what you want for drinks at the wedding?" Speaking specifically of beers, and I was like, I immediately like froze in almost
I'm
like
not a part of this conversation, by the way.
Yeah, Ted cut out. Ted's mic cut out. So
something wrong with my tech here.
Yeah,
everything cool.
Must have moved to Ashland. But I was like paralyzed because I'm like, there are 7,000 microbreweries in Nashville alone. Yeah. I don't know how to make this choice. Whereas, 20 years ago would have been like, yeah, there's 6 beers to choose from. And so the mass produced thing is much, much simpler for all of us.
Yeah.
Whether it's shoes or suits or beverages that Ted doesn't know anything about.
I'm over Bespoke, man. I'm over it. Give me IKEA, dude. Give me mass produced Swedish disposable.
Oh, check this out, Big T.
I'm here for that,
man. You'll love it. Speaking of mass produced, so one of my close friends sent me a pair of Air Jordans for my birthday.
They're so sweet, aren't they, dude?
Dude, I would have never bought a pair in my life.
Which ones are they? Like which
I
iteration?
need better friends.
No
doubt, dude.
I would not be able to tell you like which ones they are, obviously. I literally have no clue.
Can you text me and Piper a pic? Like, you don't have to do it right now.
I'll send you a pic right now. Yeah, absolutely. Because I just sent him a pic like when they came in, to say, hey, look, I got them, man. I'm stoked. And, I don't know. Am I allowed to wear Jordans? I don't know. I mean, it's like kind of a hipster thing, but I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah.
All right, here it is, man. Sending it to you right now.
All right, let's have a look, man. Let's have a look at Ron's new shoes.
Tell me what you think, boys.
Such good radio. Texting each other and then telling each other about the texts.
Exactly.
But I mean, like, I'm not a guy. I'm an Adidas guy and a Converse guy. I would never buy a pair of Air Jordans to save.
Oh, baby, those are sick.
Yeah, these are early Jordans. I'm not a sneakerhead, but these are. Yeah, we're talking like the first two or three Jordans.
I
But then
think
I'm
that's
thinking
the
like
first,
I live in Ohio. Like, is this going to get me killed because they're not like LeBrons? Like, I don't know.
Oh
No,
no, baby!
I think LeBron wears Jordans.
He should, man.
Anyway, there it is. There it is. I thought you boys would like that.
That's the
Baby, those
closest
are
he'll ever get to
youthful.
being Jordan.
It is
Those are
sporty.
really youthful and sporty,
Yeah, for sure.
and mass produced.
And mass produced. Absolutely.
Yeah. Dude,
Can we
shout
end
out to
this? Can we
shout
end
out to
this?
IKEA, dude. I want IKEA on as a sponsor too.
Oh, I
I
would
want to
love
get
that.
IKEA, and I want to get tweed suits. What's the name of that company? Tweed
Tweedmaker.
Tweedmaker, dude. I want Tweedmaker and I want IKEA. And you know what? I feel excited now. So that did it. Like the thought of doing a business deal.
Cured your glumness.
I would also like a listener to take the song Waymaker, which I believe is a kind of mass-produced worship song, and write lyrics to Tweedmaker for it, if you know what I'm discussing. And then you can just drop the audio file to us at happyrantpodcast@gmail.com. Send us a link on Twitter, whatever. Like it would just brighten up what has been a glum stretch of life.
You know we got some guys who are on that, man. Like half our listenership is worship guys, I bet. So they're on it. Well, boys, this has been like no joke, no irony. This has been fun, and yeah, it's been a while since I had fun. So
Really, it wasn't glum?
no, dude, it wasn't. Like to me, talking about it in the way that we talked about
Talking about glumness and the way we talk about it takes the glumness out of
it takes
glumness.
the glumness away, man.
That's the title, the glumness out of glumness. Pipe, write that down.
All right, writing it down.
Always producing. Boys, we've done what we always do in this program, in that we have wandered to and fro throughout some topics. And until next time.
The Happy Rant is brought to you by Resonate Recordings. If you go to resonaterecordings.com, you can see the full range of services they offer. So if you're considering starting a podcast, they are the ones we recommend going with. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see their prices, to connect with them and ask any questions, and to see what they can do to help you launch, edit, master, and improve your podcast. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see what they can do to help you launch and improve your podcast.